What is going on, Swayze gang? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A. I'm sure you have noticed, since I have pretty much shouted it out to the entire world, but as of last Saturday, the channel surpassed 10,000 subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Huge thank you to every single one of you that felt that my content was good enough, or me personally was good enough to warrant a subscription to this channel. I really appreciate it. I can't say it enough, and I say it every single time we hit a little milestone, but especially 10,000 subs. So huge thank you to every single one of you that has done that. I really appreciate the support. This channel has built a really cool community of individuals, and I'm really grateful to have you guys in my life. I've made some pretty good friends throughout the process, and I'm excited to see where this channel goes. I'm going to continue making videos and continue pushing myself to create better and better content. Now, the topic for today's video is just going to be a simple Q&A. I was actually going to post the Night Rider footage from the Hellcat, but I'm going to save that until next week because you only hit 10,000 subscribers once. Well, hopefully, unless I lose subscribers and then gain them back again. But hopefully that doesn't happen. So, as I'm sure a lot of you saw on YouTube and on Instagram, I threw out a couple posts this week asking you guys to submit some questions that I will answer in today's Q&A video. And thankfully, a lot of you guys and girls sent out some questions, so that's what we're gonna be focusing on in today's video. But without further ado, let's kick off the Q&A and answer all these questions to the best of my abilities. Now, this is in no particular order, but the first question I had was, how often a month do you have to fill up your tank? That is a very good question, and I don't drive this car that often. I've definitely started driving it a little bit more now that the weather is getting better. But I would say I fill this car up maybe once every 2.5 to 3 weeks. But it really depends on how often you drive. I drive this car on the weekends, and that's pretty much it. So I'm putting about 50 to 100 miles a weekend, maybe tops. And so, you know, a full tank of gas will run you about 300 miles or so on the Hellcat. Maybe a little bit less depending on how you're driving. You're probably running about 13 to 14, maybe at best 15 mpg when you're driving in the city. You can get it up to 20 if you're doing some highway miles. The next question is, how can you afford these cars at such a young age? That's a good question. I'm actually not that young. I mean, I'm 26. I guess that's relatively young, but I talked about this topic in a video from, I want to say it was in January. I'm going to try to throw it up on the screen somewhere right now. I talk about what I do for a living and how I afford these cars. And, well, truth be told, if you guys don't know, I am leasing the Hellcat, and I'm also leasing my Toyota RAV4. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the Bronco yet when that one comes in, whether I'm going to lease or finance it. But you know, altogether, between the two cars that I have right now, my monthly payment is less than $900 a month. So between the two, so it really isn't that insane of a payment. You know, that has to do with the fact that leasing is just a very good way to get into a pretty expensive car, and I talk about that in the video that I referenced earlier. But when it comes to gas and insurance, obviously all that stuff adds up. To give you a little bit of background, I have a full-time job. I work 40 to 50 hours a week. And then YouTube also helps pay for a pretty good amount of my auto expenses, whether that's mod or the monthly payment or insurance or gas, whatever. YouTube helps pay for that. It's nowhere near the big YouTubers, but you know, that's something that helps kind of offset some of the expenses and why I can afford to have a little bit more expensive cars. The third part of how I can afford this is I really don't spend that much money outside of cars. I don't buy too many new clothes. I don't ever go out to like Starbucks or any local coffee shop and spend money on that. I just make coffee at home. And then I don't really go out to eat that often. You know, maybe once a week, probably once every 2 weeks that I go out and eat. and I don't go to like super crazy expensive places. So it just depends on what your priorities are. If that's what you really want, and you may want to sacrifice on eating out as often. Another thing I really recommend before I move on to the next question is make sure that you build up your credit. If you have a good credit score, you know, the world is your oyster. It really does open up a lot of opportunities. So if there's one piece of advice you can take from me is continue to work on your credit score, pay off your bills, you know, pay off your credit cards monthly, or keep a low balance on your credit cards, and don't miss a payment. And that will lead you to having the best monthly payments in the future. The next question is, what is your favorite segment to do on your channel? You know, i.e. car reviews, mods, etc. That is a really good question, and I don't know if I have a perfect answer to that. I like personally doing a variety of different videos. I love doing car reviews. It would be very difficult for me to really have a passion to do those like on a weekly basis, because for me, when I do a car review, it takes tons and tons of hours of work, not just the filming, and then editing takes probably double the amount of time. You know, I'm in 15, 20 hours on a project on one weekly car review. That would be really difficult, especially with a full-time job. So I don't know if car reviews are my favorite. I enjoy going and reviewing cars, but I don't know if I could do it on a weekly basis. I think one of my favorites is probably doing like a car mod video. I like doing those. I think they're fun to do for you and for me because I get to see something different and I get to explain to you what I'm doing to my car. The priorities that I have on my channel is to inform you, give you some, you know, really good information or facts. And then the secondary is to entertain. One type of video style that I don't really ever do anymore is car shows. The thing is I'm not dedicating an entire video to a car show because I just don't think it's that entertaining for my viewers. There are a lot of people out there that do great car show videos and their channel thrives on that. And I just haven't really had that much success with it. I don't really know, you know, how to film it for you guys. Do I make it cinematic? Do I make it more of just like me walking around filming the cars? I can't really get in a groove, and every single time I've done a car show video as like a full video, it really hasn't done very well. So that's probably my like least favorite type of video to do on the channel. What type of videos can we look forward to during summertime? That's a good question. To be honest, I wish I knew exactly what videos I'm gonna do throughout the rest of the year, but sometimes it just comes out of just like me thinking of something. So I don't know exactly what videos I have planned for the summer, but I do know that I plan to do a little bit more mods on the car. I'm not done with it yet. I actually have a couple in mind that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet, but would change the lookup of the car pretty significantly in my opinion. And then in terms of other content, it really depends on when I'm going to get the Ford Bronco. Since deliveries technically start in the beginning of summer, I would be really, really surprised if I got my Bronco sometime during the summer. It's possible, but very, very surprising. But if that happens in the summertime, I plan to surely take that car off-roading, do some crazy stuff to it. That's what I'm gonna be focusing a lot of my attention on because I've already made a lot of Challenger videos. I've had a Challenger body style for over 3 years and I've made a lot of videos on it. So to me, the Bronco would be something new and something a little bit different on the channel. But again, I don't think that's gonna happen in the summertime. And if it hits the wintertime, there's not too many off-road places that I would go to. I may just take it out in the snow and stuff, but I can't really take it to like Moab and do off-roading because it's gonna be way too slippery and wet. Hopefully that happens in the summer. If that doesn't happen, I'm gonna create some other types of videos for sure. I'm gonna do a 0 to 60 comparison of this car, like actually putting the best 0 to 60 that I can on it. I may try to take it to a drag strip sometime during the summer. There's none here really in Utah that I would go to. There's I think one in Wyoming that's an 1/8 of a mile track. Maybe I'll drill through the hood of the car and add some hood pins to it. But rest assured, I will continue to create content throughout the entire summer and I'll have more opportunities to do so because there's a lot more activities going on in the summer than in the wintertime. All right, I got a question asking, what will be your next Mopar? Also a very good question. You know, my next car, like you know, is going to be the Bronco. I've talked about it already. But if for some reason the Bronco didn't work out, you know, maybe it won't happen until 2023. I don't even know. Nobody knows when it's going to happen. Ideally, I would love to have a truck as kind of a daily driver. Having a house, it's very useful to have a truck. I always have to borrow my dad's truck or just try to put a trailer on my Toyota. And so having a truck would be really useful. And obviously being a Mopar person, I really like the Ram 1500. So if whatever reason something doesn't work out with the Bronco, which I hope it does, I would probably bring a Mopar truck on the channel, probably a new Ram 1500. I would love to go for a TRX. I can't afford that. Aside from a truck, I think it would be really cool to bring an old school Mopar to the channel. I would love to have like a 1960s or 70s Super B, especially a throwback to the Challenger Scatpack I had. It was technically the Super B. Obviously having an old school Dodge Challenger would be amazing. Maybe a Barracuda, that would be really awesome to have. What's going to be your next mod? So I've actually already ordered it and it's already in my house. I'm actually going to be adding some mud flaps or scrape guards or mud guards, whatever you call them, in the wheel well of the front and the back tires. I've noticed as I'm cleaning this car that there are some micro scratches from rocks that kick up from the wide body of the front wheels. I was hoping to prevent that by ordering these mud guards, which a lot of you recommended to buy from day one. I know. I just didn't think they were worth $100 because they're just like cheap pieces of plastic. But there's not really any other competitors out there that do it cheaper. So that will probably be the next like mod, quote unquote, even though it's not really a mod. Some other stuff I want to do, I may do hood pin installation on this car. I'm just kind of scared to drill into the hood of a new car, but that may be something I'm going to pull the trigger on and do because I just really love the look of hood pins on the car. Then someone asked, do you plan to do an engine build on the Hellcat? And the answer is no, I don't. And that has nothing to do with the fact that, people will say, oh, it's because he's leasing the car, he doesn't actually own it. No, even if I was financing it, I would not do an engine build. But the reason I don't want to do an engine build is, for one, this car has way more power than I ever need. If there's anything I really could do to improve the power, I need to get much more money into the back end and invest in some really nice tires or some drag radial tires. That would be the best benefit, I think, financially, to get more power down the road. The second reason, aside from power, is I don't want to void the warranty. One of the reasons I went for a brand new car is because I would get the full 3 years of warranty. And so, doing an engine build, to me, it's risky because if something goes wrong, you're out a $20,000 Hellcat engine, and I just don't have that kind of money to swing around. So maybe after the warranty, 5-10 years from now. Financially speaking, it's probably better to just upgrade into a more powerful car like the Red Eye, which I could always do, than to spend that money and put in like a bigger supercharger. Okay, next question. What different types of tires have you tried and which do you like best? What in your experience has been the most important regular maintenance items outside of oil changes? In terms of tires, I haven't really had a huge experience with very many. And the ones I had before on the Scatpack were Toyo Proxys, I think, or Proxies. Those were really good tires. I like them both. I actually never replaced the tires on my Scatpack. They were the same ones when I bought them, and they still had a pretty good amount of tread 15,000 miles later when I sold them. So in terms of wear and tear, those seem to be lasting pretty good. I don't know if I can give the best information when it comes to tires and changing them. I have heard the Nitto 555s are probably one of the best ones that you can get, which are kind of a nice mix between like a drag tire and just an all-season one. Now, in terms of maintenance, I really haven't done that much aside from take them in for their regular routine 6,000 mile maintenance. If you do that, you should be fine. There's not really anything else you should do to the car. Once you get into the higher mileage cars, obviously you want to do some more transmission oil changes, maybe change the coolant in the future. So, I mean, there's other things you can do, but in terms of a regular routine maintenance, there's really not much else aside from that. And who did your ceramic coating again? I wonder who asked this question. It was Black Hawk Polishing. They did my ceramic coating. Ken or Garrick did a fantastic job on it. So if you guys are in the area, make sure you reach out to him. He's a great guy and he does great work. Next question, do you think one day you'll do a car giveaway? I would love to. That would be fantastic. I would love to give away a car on the channel. I don't know when and if I would get to that level of channel that I could afford to do that kind of stuff, but I think that would be really cool. So maybe that could be something that comes to the channel, but this channel definitely has to grow a little bit more than it has been. Do you have another dream car other than the Hellcat? That's a really good question. In all honesty, I've had a lot of different dream cars growing up. When I was a kid, I used to love like Ford Expeditions and the H2 Hummer. Like that was like my dream car when they came out. Those are my favorite cars. When I was a little bit older, I really loved this particular, I'm not gonna say what it is because I'm half tempted to bring this car to the channel at some point within like the next few years. So I'm not gonna ruin the surprise, but it was this mid-2000s Chevy that was really unique. It was definitely one of a kind, and I fell in love with that car, and that was my dream car. So to answer your question, I've had a lot of dream cars over the years that if I was to get another like quote-unquote dream car, I'd probably pick one of those from my childhood that I really liked and bring it to the channel. To me, having a dream car isn't necessarily like a Lambo or a Bugatti or something crazy. I really like the dream cars that you can daily drive and still have fun with. Not that I wouldn't love to have a Lamborghini. That's probably, of the supercars, my like dream car. I love Lambos. I always have as a kid. Another question I have is any ideas for slight mods on my 2010 Challenger? It's only my first car. That's a good question. I recommend you look back on some of the mods I've done to my Scatpack. I've done more on that car than I did on the Hellcat. And maybe some of those will spark your interest. If you haven't already, I would recommend you cut off the mufflers and put in some Dynamax race bullets or some other, replacement muffler, because that's a really good way to get a lot better sound out of the car with very little financial investment. And I don't know if you have a V6 or a V8 or what it is, but it doesn't really matter. You're still gonna get a better sound if you replace those mufflers. Another thing I would recommend is hood pins. I think any model year Challenger looks so much meaner with hood pins. Those are some 2 ideas that you can use maybe for your car before you upgrade to the next one. Have you let anyone else drive the Hellcat besides your fiance? That's a good question. I actually had my dad drive it one time, and he barely drove it. Like it was like 5-10 minutes tops. And he just wanted to kind of feel the car and see how it drove. He really liked it. I kept wanting my mom and my brother to drive it, and I think they're just worried about driving it. They just don't want to wreck it or anything and then be responsible. And then I've also had my cousin-in-law and my cousin drive the car just briefly when I first got it. I'm not one of those people that says you cannot drive my car. I'm the only one driving it. I like giving people that experience. Like, I don't really mind that much if I know the person. If I know who they are and that they're responsible, I won't mind giving them the keys to drive around as long as I'm in the passenger seat. I had a question asking, what's your name, bro? That's a good question. I never really talk about it in my videos, but my first name is Armand. What do you do for a living? Congrats on 10,000 subs. Thank you so much. What do I do for a living? That's a very good question. I mentioned it a little bit earlier in this video and in the video when I talk about how much I pay for this car, but I graduated in finance and I work in the banking industry. So not that you need to work in that industry to afford a car like this. There are plenty of different fields. And then congrats, how about the meaning behind your YouTube name, if there is one, or how you came up with it and why the underscore at the end? This is a big question. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what in the world is Swayze? What does that even mean? And it kind of doesn't mean anything, to be completely honest. I came up with the name partway through my college career because I was doing a little kind of fashion endeavor, side hustle type of thing. And I was creating this brand for this fashion side hustle, and I came up with the name Swayze because, well, for one, I always liked the last name of Patrick Swayze. He had a really cool last name, and I thought, well, that's a cool name. Maybe I add a little bit of twist to it and call it Swayze and transform that into kind of a synonym for something like, hey, that's cool. Like instead of, hey, that's cool, you could say, hey, that's Swayze. Or, instead of it's lit or it's Swayze here, So just kind of a funny made up word to stand for something that's like cool or unique or different. And so that's where it originally came from for this like fashion side hustle. And then as that kind of faded away and I decided to start up my YouTube channel, I kind of kept that name because my original intention for this channel wasn't to just focus on cars. I was actually going to make it kind of like a lifestyle video channel. Well, here we are 5 years later and there's not a single video on the channel that doesn't have to do with cars. So definitely focused on cars. That's been my passion ever since. And so the name doesn't really relate or make sense to the meaning of the channel anymore. Swayze or, cool, which is what I wanted it to stand for, doesn't really have anything to do with cars. And I'm not gonna lie, I have contemplated very, very deeply changing the name of the channel. And I have a couple ideas in mind that I think would be really cool for this channel and the community that I've built. And I don't know, I want to actually hear your guys' thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. Would you be open to a name change on the channel? Would you, unsubscribe? Would it change the way you think of the channel in any way? Or do you like the name Swayze and you don't see any issues with it? In my experience, I haven't changed it over the last 5 years because I realize most people don't search for a YouTube name to find the YouTube video. Usually you search for a topic. So that's why titles and thumbnails are very important. but a YouTube name doesn't really matter. The reason Shwazy has an underscore is because, well, at the time of making the channel, there was no Shwazy without the underscore. That was taken. And so YouTube didn't allow me to do that. And so I racked my brain and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna quickly create an underscore and then I can always change it later. And I never did. Next question is, when you switch the mid muffler for the race bullets, does that impact the car's warranty or any of the emission standards? Basically, will the car still pass inspection? Yes, yes, and yes. The only time you might have issues is if you live in a state with really strict loudness restrictions or exhaust restrictions. I know California is really strict about that. So I don't know the details about, whether you can get a ticket for it being too loud. But when it comes to like safety, yeah, it's perfectly fine. We don't actually have safety anymore here in Utah, so I can't say for sure. When it comes to emissions, the muffler has nothing to do with emissions. It's just sound. And so if you start touching the catalytic converter, that will cause emissions problems and your O2 sensors and stuff will go off. But when you're just swapping a muffler, there's no issues. And I think I'm pretty certain for safety inspections, they don't really care either. What inspired you to do YouTube? Very good question. Even before I started YouTube, I always had like a really close relationship with video performances and kind of video format. I was always familiar with that because ever since I was like in middle school, early middle school, I'd create little like skits and sketches and comedy stuff using just a video camera, like my old camcorder with the little mini tape in it that would always just break and it would just cause tons of frustration. But my brother would do that kind of stuff and I would mimic him. And so from a very young age, I was always kind of ready to be in front of a camera because I had just had experience with it. I was pretty familiar with YouTube, just not to the same extent that I am now. And I always had this passion for cars ever since I could remember. Ever since I was like a year old, I loved cars. And so, around 2014, 2015 is when the Hellcat came out, and you could partially attribute me starting the YouTube channel because of the Hellcat. At the time, when this car came out in 2015, I had a job where I could actually listen to YouTube videos and work at the same time. It was a desk job. I didn't really talk to anybody. And before, back when I would look at Car and Driver, Motor Trend, and read about this car, I couldn't do that while I was working. And so the next best thing was listen to YouTube videos about the cars that I liked. And so, I would listen to a ton of YouTube videos about this car and the Challenger and all the new features. And then, that transitioned into other cars. I really liked a bunch of different cars at the time, like, the Volkswagen Golf. I really liked the GTI. I looked up that car. And that's when I kind of stumbled upon Subaru WRX fan, which now a lot of you know as Matt Moran Motoring. I stumbled upon his channel as I was kind of going through all these videos, and I really liked his content. He was like the first YouTuber that I really started watching in the automotive world. Through that, I actually found another suggested video, which happened to be Street Speed 717. But what was funny was this was like his third or fourth or fifth video that I stumbled upon. It's kind of funny that I was one of the early people to actually see his content and his channel grow. I hate being one of those people that's like, I was there before it was cool, but I kind of was when it came to Street Speed 717. I mean, I watched his content before a lot of people did. I think I caught him before he hit 1,000 subscribers. I remember his yellow Corvette. I remember his white Hellcat when he bought that. And then obviously he's grown exponentially since then. And so I really liked his content, the way he described things, kind of his down-to-earth attitude. I don't really follow him that much anymore, to be honest, aside from some of the big headline videos. But back then I would watch a lot of his videos. And, between him and Subaru WRX fan, you gotta say it that fast. And, some of these other channels like Redline Reviews, I decided, let me start a YouTube channel because I really have a passion for video and cars. And let me just put something out there and, talk about my car. And at the time I had a Mercedes C300 4MATIC. It was a fantastic car. I loved it. And I thought, what better way than just start talking about the car that I have and chat with people using video. So that's kind of where the channel started, and it just continued to grow since then. Another question, do you plan on getting the Hellcat tuned? Like I said earlier, when it came to the engine build on the Hellcat, I don't really plan on doing any engine modifications to the car. I just want to keep it pretty stock. Why did you switch from a Scatpack to a Hellcat? I'm looking into getting one. Which is better? It's a really good question. I'll probably address this in a video after I've had a little more time under the belt with the Hellcat. In all honesty, the Scatpack is a fantastic car. And if you're looking for just one of the best muscle cars you can buy, that's still amazingly quick, really fun to drive, really good looking, I'd say go for the Scatpack. Insurance really isn't that bad on it in my experience compared to the Hellcat. For the best bang for your budget, you got to go for the Scatpack. I love the Hellcat. I went for it because it's been my dream car. And that's why I upgraded, and I talked about that in previous videos. I've always wanted the Hellcat since it came out in 2015. But I'm not gonna lie, I still miss my Scatpack in some aspects. The fact that it wasn't an $80,000 car meant that I didn't treat it like an $80,000 car, and I was able to enjoy it maybe more for what it was. It was a very fun car to have, and if money's no option, go for the Hellcat. But I think for most of us out there, money does play some role into things. And if that's the case, I'd almost go for the Scatpack if you don't really have a preference between the two. What are your top 3 goals you want to accomplish in 2021? That is also very good question. One of the goals is obviously get the Bronco on the channel. That's something I'm going to try to push for and see if I can get. Part of the reason I built the car the way I did is to be able to get it a little bit quicker than some of the other parts that are on back order. Second goal is I am going to launch merchandise. And that is part of the reason why I'm debating on changing the name of the channel. It's because I don't want to release a set of like sweatshirts or t-shirts or hats that have Swayze on it and then 2 months later change the name to something entirely different, because I feel like that just kind of screws over the initial people that have ordered the sweatshirts before. Third goal is to continue creating content and pushing myself to create better and better content. And with that, I would like to grow the channel even quicker. I would love to hit 20,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I would love to hit 50,000 subscribers a year from now. My goal is to really just provide the best content. That's what I'm focusing on this year. Somebody else asked, are you planning on adding more power, or will you enjoy what you have and focus on aesthetics? Like I said earlier, not planning on really adding any power, but I definitely will modify the aesthetics. I love doing like aesthetic stuff to cars because there's always gonna be someone quicker than you. Whereas aesthetically speaking, it's very hard for someone to look exactly the same as you. So that's my plan, is to change up some things and make it a little bit more unique. Somebody else asked, are you still loving the color of the Challenger? Yes, I do love the Hellraisin color. A part of me still loves the Destroyer Gray, and I also still love the Plum Crazy Purple color. But in terms of reactions from people, this car gets a ton of reactions. Not that the Destroyer Gray didn't, but there's very, very few of the Hellraisin here in Utah, and so when people see it, they just fall in love with it. They can't get enough of it, and the fact that it changes colors in the shade and in the sunlight, people love the color, and I love when people talk about it. Need some rock guards, my man, save your paint. That's exactly what the next mod is gonna be, so great guess right there. Someone asked, why not a Charger? That's a really good question because I was very, very close to actually going for a Charger Hellcat. The reason I didn't go that route is because right now, it's just me and my fiance, and we don't really need the back seats. I have my daily driver, my Toyota for that, and she has her Range Rover for that, so I don't really need a 4-door car. I had that in the past, my Mercedes, and I rarely ever use the back seats, and I always really, really loved the look of the Challenger. The Charger has definitely grown on me, and I love the look of the wide-body Charger, but to me, the retro look of this car is like nothing else. Next question is, how do the V6 and V8 compare in pushing the pedal? For example, do you have to feather the pedal on the V8 Challenger? Very good question. When I test drove several Scatpacks in the past before buying mine, I did notice that the pedal is very, very touchy on the Scatpacks. I don't know why it's that way. It's just like you touch it a little bit and the thing just launches. It takes a little bit of getting used to. And even after owning the car for 2.5 years, if I drove the Toyota for a while and switched to the Challenger, it would kind of throw me off. Surprisingly, the V8 under the hood of my Hellcat is not as touchy. That pedal is just as smooth as it is in my 4-cylinder RAV4. So it really depends. I think it may just be the car that you sit in. All that being said, it's something you can definitely get used to. I don't think you're ever gonna cause a car accident because the pedal is a little too touchy. Someone asked, is the V8 Challenger worth it rather than V6 Challenger? That's a good question. I think it depends on what V8 you're looking at. There are some YouTube videos out there that talk about the 5.7 RT Hemi Challenger versus the V6. You guys can look up those videos. I think if you're going for a Challenger, you're going for old school retro look, I'd recommend you wait or save up a little bit more and go for a V8, unless you need all-wheel drive, in which case the V6 is your only option. But if you are wanting it for like kind of a cool car and it's not your daily driver, I think a V8 is a fantastic car to have. Even for a daily driver, it's just your gas mileage might be a little worse. But the sound alone is worth it, I think. Power-wise, the V6 versus a V8 with the 5.7, you're not that big of a difference. From a V6 to the Scatpack, yes, you'll notice a big difference between the two. Not saying the V6 is not a fantastic engine. That 3.5 liter is almost a bulletproof engine. It's a really good engine to have in a car. I would just say for engine and experience perspective, go for the V8. If you weren't on YouTube, would you keep the Beast stock? Also a good question. Obviously, YouTube pushes me to push my car to the limits and try new things because that creates better content for you guys. But I think I would still do a few things to the car, even if I wasn't a YouTuber. I don't know if I would take apart the bumper of the car and put lights in. I think that's probably YouTube pushing me to do that. But I'm actually glad that YouTube's kind of pushed me to do this because I love the result of doing the stuff that I have to the car. And if I didn't have YouTube or you guys to share it with, it just wouldn't be as fun and I probably wouldn't have as much fun with my car. Do you think in about 13 years, will the price of a Challenger increase or decrease or just stay the same? Not including the Demon, since it will be a legendary car at that point, increase guaranteed. Really good question, and I wish I had a crystal ball to see into the future. You know, chances are the car is going to decrease because 99% of car values out there have decreased from 10 years ago. I think it really depends on what the direction is of the automotive industry. If we're heading into a direction where electric cars are going to be boring and just commuter vehicles, I could see a really big demand for big, naturally aspirated or supercharged or turbocharged V8s. I don't think the industry is heading that direction. I personally think the industry is going towards a fun electric car industry where you're going to have really powerful electric cars. You're going to have a competitor to the Hellcat that has way more power, way better acceleration, way better traction, and that car is just going to beat the Hellcat. The Hellcat's just not going to have the same name, even if it is a gasoline-powered engine. And for that reason, I just don't know if the value of this car is really going to go up over time. But nobody really knows. I'm not going to rely on the fact that the value of these cars are going to go up. I think they're going to just decrease over time gradually like every other car. All right, somebody asked, does pineapple go on pizza? My answer is yes, I'm okay with it. I like pineapple on pizza. I think it tastes pretty good. Somebody else asked, when are you getting married? Yeah, I'm sure you're tired of me calling her my fiance in like every video. So we're actually getting married in September. So we are really stoked for that. We have quite a bit of planning left. We've got a few things that we've already figured out. So we're not like super stressed, but that's the date. Now for this last question, I'm actually gonna have to stand up and show you because somebody asked, can you just show us the rear seat legroom of your Challenger? It's hard for us to find one to test drive here in some parts of Canada. I sure can, and let me show you what it looks like right now. All right, so here we are coming up to the Challenger. Opening it up. Put the seat belt. I'm actually going to move the seat forward a little bit so I can have a little bit of better access. Ignore this dirty towel here. We're not going to talk about what that is. And let's get into the car right now. Okay, boys and girls, so I have actually pushed the seat a little bit more forward where I would mostly comfortably sit for a good period of time, but not as comfortable as I usually am. And now I've got plenty of leg room back here. I mean, you've got probably about 2 or so inches, 2-3 inches of leg room. And so you could more comfortably drive, and I would still be comfortable driving in the driver's seat. The other nice thing back here is you actually have a little armrest as well that I don't think I've ever opened up, but it's got 2 cup holders. As you can see here, there's not really much lighting back here, but 2 cup holders, really comfortable. It's leather wrapped. So yeah, it's really nice to sit back here. It's really not that bad. The hardest part is getting in and out because you kind of have to fall out and fall in. And that's really the most difficult part about getting in the back seat. Other than that, once you're back here, it's actually pretty comfortable. Alrighty, boys and girls, that finishes off today's video. Again, I want to thank every single one of you for supporting the channel. I hope you continue to do so by liking, sharing, commenting, continuing to subscribe if you haven't already, because I love doing this stuff and I plan to continue growing it. In the near future, I plan to release some merchandise, so stay tuned for that. But like always, stay healthy, stay schwazy, and have a wonderful day.